So what we're going to do is we've got, I'm going to give a quick review of where we are in programmable telecoms, give you some numbers, give you some definitions to help understand, why, we do TAD Summit and why we keep sort of, mentioning this thing called programmable telecoms. Then what I'll do is I'll invite a number of people to come down and sit here, and then Mark's going to lead a panel discussion which involves the audience. We're just putting a panel up here because they have no choice. People are looking at them, they have to talk. But actually, the objective is to get you to talk, okay? So that's the aim, and that session will really try to focus on a number of questions that Mark's put together, as well as, the sort of panel title is, what do we call ourselves? We've got some suggestions there, and also sort of, pointing out the fact that digital banking, digital insurance, and the rest call themselves fintech, and all of a sudden it was reinvented, and we had massive conferences and lots of investor interest. And we're certainly not without investor interest, but because we don't have the category awareness necessarily, the people who are who've created the value aren't necessarily reaping the rewards of those transactions. So moving on. As I said, we have been seeing in this category quite a few transactions of late. I showed you yesterday, I know it seems a lot longer than that, across the TAD Summit sponsors, some of the transactions over the past couple of years. But that's just a part of it. They then start looking at, TalkDesk, we have the TalkDesk guys here. Boy, you raised them a fair amount of cash. Wow. And was that the most cash ever raised by a Portuguese startup? No, it wasn't. Okay. But it was big. And of course, Infobip has been sort of threatening IPO. MessageBird raised a ton of cash. SignalWire just popped up. There's a whole host of companies. There you go. There's the Twilio logo. They bought, allegedly, an email API company. It's email marketing. It's a spam company, just so you understand. It's nothing to do with email API. There is an API there, but actually it's all about email spam. But it's messaging spam, really, and of course messaging is moving into a whole range of different verticals, as well as analytics companies, Authly and a whole range of others. Uniphonic just raised a fair bit of cash. We heard Greg talking about them, and it always amazes me when I talk to companies in the US about all the companies in this space. I'll say CLX, and they're like, who are they? And it's, you do realize just the number of companies they've bought over the years, including Mblocks. And they're, significant size. They don't necessarily have the 8 billion valuation that we see with Twilio, but it's still a fair bit of cash revenue that they see across their businesses. So there's a lot of stuff happening in this space, and I've not captured it all at all. This was just to give you a feel. In some ways, it feels like there's just a massive game of musical chairs taking place. Last year, Greg was with Telestax. Now he's with OVO, and there's just a whole, he is, it's still the same person doing more or less the same thing. It's just there's a different brand, different. Is there a OVO t-shirt? No. Oh, absolutely, no. And you're a good friend for TADHack TAD Summit. So, because I know you were pushing hard to try and get a TADHack in Krakow. So, one of the things that I get asked quite often is, what is programmable telecoms? Does it even exist? Is this a figment of your imagination? Because of course, all the big name analysts use acronyms because they take a very abstract view of the world, and as long as they can sort of divvy it up and make it easy to understand, that becomes a particular category. Even though, as we've seen right at the start from the keynotes and the CPaaS panel, the world is a lot more complex than that. So let me give you some definitions. I'm going to have to turn this way because I don't have the laptop in front of me. There's the acronym soup, so we just give you a few examples of what gets covered in this category. Of course, CPaaS, UCaaS, CSaaS, open source telecom software. And one of the dirty little secrets is a lot of telcos are using ever more open source telecom software. It's now, Verizon's been very public that whenever you want to buy software and it's not open source, you have to create a business justification why. That was almost 10 years ago now. So a strong push, and it's pervasive across most operators today. Of course, CPaaS enablers, we heard about Twilio Flex, but they weren't first, just so we know. And there's, sort of Kazoo by 2600 Hertz. Telnix have a UCaaS enabler. Apiphonica didn't even bother with an enabler. They were just like, we'll just build a UCaaS on top of our CPaaS platform, and we'll sell that under the Dazinga brand. So there's a whole range of players who've been out doing this for a considerable period of time. Also, there's multi-factor authentication, instant authentication. You don't want to know how many transactions are taking place when you're logging on to your bank where there's actually an API saying, is this from Alan Quayle? And, or there's this mobile number. What do you know about it? Does it, sort of correspond to this account name and address we have that's being accessed? Most of the time, there's alignment, and that access just goes through. Sometimes there isn't. And that's when you have to go through and enter in your sort of, your mother's inside leg measurement and a whole range of other weird and wonderful, like your sort of, your first car, make of your first car. And I can never remember, is that like sort of, Vauxhall, or is it Astra, or, weird names that you have to add in there. But anyway, they've solved a whole range of things. WebRTC, Cloud Comms, CPaaS-enabled services, omni-channel. So it's not just about SMS. It's all the messaging platforms, including push messaging that's in there. So this is very broad, but this is the reality. This is all the plumbing that you can use, as well as the data. Infrastructure as code. We saw from the Wazo guys a great example of what they're building, and I think that's a very powerful tool. Telecom service dashboards. So now what we're seeing is when you go into the management console, say for UCaaS, so you can configure mobile numbers or sort of accounts and numbers and users and some workflow. It's a way to actually sell a whole range of additional services. So you now see some UCaaS that are selling some of the CPaaS-enabled services through the UCaaS management dashboard. You can even buy CSaaS. It's not really a full call center seat. It's sort of, targeting small, medium enterprise. It's a good enough call center seat at a fraction of the price of what you would pay for a full call center. So there's a lot of really interesting things coming out that are enabling different segments. Because when we say the word enterprise, we got to understand that's not just a whole range of verticals, it's a whole range of different sizes of businesses that behave very differently across a whole range of companies. A whole range of countries. For example, in the UK, enterprises tend to buy through managed service providers or integrators. They don't tend to go directly dealing with the telcos. While, say, if we look in Spain, Telefonica has an amazing position across the business community for selling not just communication, but IT-related services as well. So you really need to examine this on a country-by-country basis. So anyway, I've labored that enough. There's the examples by using acronyms. We're all engineers, we're all geeks by background. So of course, we love our architecture diagrams. So at the bottom there, we have service aggregation across all the different things. I throw in there RCS just to annoy Dean, because we can't sort of give any acronym, sort of any architecture without throwing that in. SBC firewall. On top of that is the telecom app server. Now, one of the things to understand is this isn't new. This is decades old. We can go back to the ISDN days, and even before ISDN, there were telecom app servers. I was discussing over lunch that, at one point, about 10 years ago, I knew of about 15 different open source telecom app servers that were out there. Some vendors, I knew had about 5 different, and I only counted it as one, SIP application server projects running, all aiming to be open sourced. There was Sailfin. I don't know if anybody remembers. Sun had a telecom app server, open sourced. Oracle bought it, and then it disappeared. So there's been a lot, and there's still quite a few different telecom app servers out there. Of course, SIP app servers and WebRTC application server gateways. On top of that is all the plumbing, all the cool value-added services like fax. I'm so pleased we had Howard over here to promote. And he's honest. He said, I don't fax. But guess what? There's a ton of people out there that do. And that is one of the key things I see in the telecom industry. People can say, well, I won't use that. Who cares? Look at the customer numbers, look at your customer data, and understand the numbers out there of people who actually are. Because then when you actually sort of look at your customer data, because your customers are always telling you what they want, what they're using, and you use that insight rather than your own personal experience, that then creates these opportunities. We saw with what Howard's done with Faxio, what Dennis is doing in Germany with his virtual PBX. Because guess what? When you talk to most businesses and you go UCaaS, they haven't the foggiest idea what you're talking about. It's some weird, scary cloud stuff that they have no interest or relevance. But if you start talking about virtual PBX, and it's like, oh yeah, we got this crappy PBX that really annoys us. Well, take it away. We'll manage it for you. You've got the big fat pipes, and you can now, but take your calls, whether it's on your mobile, on your desk phone. And guess what? For a lot of people, it's either a status symbol or it's how they do their job. It is, in terms of usage, been diminishing for couple of decades now, but it's not going to go away. Just like bicycles didn't go away when the car came around, it will be there in that heterogeneous environment we need to be able to manage. And then all the enterprise enablers and services. Of course, Flex is an enabler that enables system integrators, anybody who's interested to be able to build their own call center. But also there are services that are offered straight on top of that. Then there's all the management stuff, so API management, security, SLA, and it's all REST today, but again, that's moving, that's changing towards gRPC. And then that all interfaces with enterprises, services, not just internet telephony service providers, but also IT technology and telecom service providers. One of the things that I've been very impressed in Europe are the number of ISPs that have added in virtual PBX into their offers and then started adding on more and more communication-related services and offers when they realized, damn, this is now just like the web. No longer is it a scary telco protocol where I have to hire this weird guy that has beard and socks and sandals and talks in a language I don't understand. SS7 and sort of INAP. He actually sort of is just a web guy and they can use it. So there's the architectural definition. And then there's the keep it simple and stupid definition, which is if it's telecom related and it's programmable or configurable, it's programmable telecoms. There we go. We cover everything, including the internet. So yes, it exists and it's getting democratized so more and more people can use it. We've seen that. That's been a common theme through most of the presentations over the past 2 days. So then, okay, so how big is it? If it exists, what sort of revenues? What's the market size? So we can look at CPaaS, and these are just your publicly available data points from a number of different companies and firms. So CPaaS, you're looking at about 8 billion by 2021. UCaaS, depends how you want to measure it. That's lumping in virtual PBX and some of the traditional PBX stuff at 33. SIP trunking is about 11 globally, although half the market is in the US, because of course they had a different business model around who pays for the calls. A2P market, SMS market, again, it's a bit nebulous. You look at the analyst data, it could be a ridiculous spread in terms of numbers, but my guess is around sort of 12 billion. So that's all the legacy SMPP stuff, not the brand shiny new SMS stuff. We got mobile authentication, about 11 billion, and then you got mobile marketing, IoT, enterprise comms, collaboration, charging, payment, wallets, you name it. So it's a big market, okay? It's not insignificant, So we got that figure, 100 billion a year, at least, in the programmable telecoms market. Cue evil laugh. And here we go, just market valuations. Now, I know they've gone up and down since I did this graph, but you're looking at about 8 billion for Twilio, about 1 billion for Bandwidth, and about 7 billion for RingCentral. Just 3 companies in this space. Just so you understand, all the numbers are lining up in terms of the overall market size and the valuations we're seeing here. So this is a significant category that's impacting a whole range of not just consumers, but businesses all around the world. Okay, I was really pleased we had Yusuf here from South Africa, so you could see the relevance, the importance to what they're doing. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a trip for some of the sort of Senate folks or Dialogue folks to come over from Sri Lanka. But again, they've been here in previous years. Again, they're showing the importance and the impact programmable telecoms has had not just to Dialog the operator, but to the Sri Lankan economy. So, to paraphrase Thomas Howe, he's been in this space for about as long as I am. I think he's like a couple of months older than me, though I'm a lot grayer. He's been one of the thought leaders. He's been one of the implementers across a whole range of businesses. And his work, I've sort of paraphrased it a little bit, but sort of programmable telecoms is the essential spice of every ecosystem. And it's not just about connecting communications, it's also improving the overall experience. And this comes back to the keynote that Stacey gave right at the start in terms of their focus in using the data that's available to improve the experience of their customers. So just a few numbers. We've had many people talking about TADHack Global. I just wanted to show you the impact over the past 5 years. So TAD Summit, first one was in Bangkok, 2013. We had this bright idea. I can remember it was Jose from Tropo saying, we should do a hackathon. And everybody went, yes, that makes a great idea. So it was 2014, in June, we ran our first one. We've had 5 global hackathons since then. We've had 8 mini. The minis tend to be associated with a conference. Like we have one coming up in March, Enterprise Connect. We've operated TADHacks across 44 countries. So it's a big global impact. Over 100 cities. We've had 11,400 registrations. There's been over 1,000 pitches. Give you a few more numbers. We've distributed actually over $250,000 in prize money. I was surprised when I totaled that up. That was a big number. And an additional 100,000 in goodies and vouchers over the past 5 years. We've had 84 sponsors. Well, you saw the diagram I had there of all the different brands that have been associated with TADS. Over 150 partners, including 16 universities. We've generated 700 pitch videos with over 200 minutes of view. Some of those videos have been viewed over 5,000 times. Now, I know that's not like Psy, where it's billions of views, but we're weird, geeky niche called programmable telecoms. I mean, it's like not just sort of, we're a geek's geek, it's like what the geeks sort of shun. So, that's a fair number of views, We've had over 1 million tweet impressions, 11 companies have been founded. We know of at least 46 people who we've helped with their job search, and hundreds more. Use TADHack on their resumes, on their LinkedIn profiles. We know of 16 services that have come out. You heard Yusuf talking about 3 of the hacks that came out of TADHack Joburg are going through to POC. This is exactly what we're trying to do with TADHack. And we've had 8 people actually, when I show 50 plus as being old, I sort of feel really sad. We've had actually people aged 85 turn up. And they learn about a hackathon. This was the first time. I mean, they're an engineer by background, but they just wanted to come in, experience a hackathon. Because we say TADHacks for everyone, they were like, well, hell, I'm an 85-year-old retiree. This could be quite interesting. So we have people turn up. They didn't pitch, which was a pity, but they got to a point whereby they played with the API, they got it working, and could see what they could do. They didn't turn up to London the following year. I'm not too sure what happened on the story. But anyway, great range of people. We've had a lot of people through TADHack. So just to quote Barbara Mikulski, each one of us can make a difference, and together we make a change. And I think that's what we've started to do with TADHack. We've made people recognize this category. We've broadened it beyond just programmable telecoms, really to any relevant technology. We are really lucky to have Status on board this year as one of the sponsors, who were able to bring in the Ethereum community. And Berlin was a great example where we had programmable telecom guys, Sebastian was there, and we had Ethereum guys, and they were sharing their experiences and understanding, oh, this is actually quite cool, and realizing there's a lot of common experiences, but they were able to sort of share very practical insights in how the technologies work. And then just some nice pictures, because pictures tell the story. There we are back in 2014, kicking things off across not just Madrid. We were in Sri Lanka, Chicago, Kuala Lumpur, Philippines, and remote. So we had entries all around the world. And this was the first hackathon we ever run. We thought it would be like sort of 30, 40 people, and we actually ended up with about 700. We then grew. There you go. That's when the Aussies got involved. So there's Mark and some of the Telstra team and Oracle team. Back in 2015, Sri Lanka grew. You can see when they show the number of developers that were involved in IdeaMart. There's this sort of 2014, all of a sudden sort of it kicks in because it became very fashionable. There was this global event, and being part of IdeaMart meant you were part of this global community, and it had a big impact. And also we were, it's Argentina is the purple hair. 2016, again, we grew. We made it onto Breakfast TV in South Africa. So that was a great achievement. The other MTN sign is the CEO of Zambia. I've worked with him when he used to be the CIO for Nigeria. Great guy. Again, all around the world. And the middle top there is over in Russia. And then 2017, again, we're growing. We brought in Colombia, Papillon. You can see KL grew. So the number of locations we have that have over 150 people is now 4. So, I mean, that's a mega hackathon when you're having to manage over 150 people. Normally, we're about 50 people. Some are smaller than that. And here we are in 2018, where South Africa was back here. There's Sri Lanka. And the thing I'm very proud of is we now have burger chains being some of our partners. They recognize hacking. They recognize TADHack because we've been there for a couple of years. And we get free burgers by putting their logo on the TADHack site. That makes me proud. So that's just to give you a flavor of all we've achieved over the past 5 years with TADHack, 6 years with TAD Summit. So hopefully I've shown you some definitions so you understand architecturally, you understand by some sort of examples what we include within programmable telecoms. You've got a feel for this is over $100 billion a year market. There's some big players in there that are new on the block that have significant valuations. And you can see there's tons of transactions. One of the frustrations I have is a lot of those transactions are very good for the finance people, but not actually for the people that are creating the value. I'll draw an analogy to AI. We see companies being bought that are AI companies for billions, and that's not because they have sort of even millions in revenue. It's because it's an acqui-hire, because it's basically recognized as an important category. I think we've had because of a whole variety of reasons, a category awareness issue. But I think that's part of what we're going to address in the panel discussion now.